Part 86. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 855. Laser UFO. Hearing the sound, Wang Ling was awakened directly even though he was sleeping soundly. Am I exposed? How did these things get here? Hua hua hua. Hua hua hua. Buzz buzz. Buzz buzz. Outside the cave, the waterfall constantly makes the deafening sound of running water, but even so, it is difficult to conceal the suspended sound of the laser UFO. Listening to the densely packed sounds, it seems that there are quite a few. No, they don't seem to have noticed me. After listening carefully to these sounds while nervous, Wang Ling also judged the current situation. The group of laser UFOs did not directly attack the cave where he was, but instead circled the waterfall area in an orderly manner. Some seemed to be patrolling, but more like a carpet search. Yes, Wang Ling did escape from the Ruitian branch of the Seoul Empire and even escaped from the pursuing army, but his hiding place was obviously not outside the sphere of influence of the Seoul Empire. Although the geographical location of this waterfall area is not important, and it is not a battleground for military strategists. Few troops are involved here, but it is an excellent hiding place. The Mind Empire is determined to search for Wang Ling and kill him. Of course, it will not miss such an area. There is no electronic map, so after encountering it, it can only be searched like this. Call. Knowing this situation, Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. Although the cave is big enough, the entrance is actually very hidden, and there are even weeds covering it. Searching from the air in the middle of the night is difficult to find. Without an electronic map, you can't find me hiding in a cave. As long as you can't search for a while, you will probably leave, right? At this time, Wang Ling also had some luck. Although the situation was indeed unfavorable to him, he did not want to run away overnight, which would be painful for him. However, just after he finished mumbling, Wang Ling suddenly changed his expression when he touched the mat he had made. Yes, he was hiding in the cave. With the laser UFO's aerial search capabilities, he couldn't be found, but he left traces of his activities here during the day. The natural environment of mountains, rivers, and trees has no obvious traces, but his washed clothes are still hanging on the rocks outside. It's broken, I forgot about this thing. I am such a fool, I am really an amateur and I got carried away, I even forgot to collect my clothes. This discovery shocked Wang Ling. Swish swish swish. Rumble. Swish swish swish. Rumble. Sure enough, those laser UFOs actually discovered those clothes. Knowing that Wang Ling was lurking here, and unable to find out where exactly they were, they simply started destroying the surrounding terrain and environment. Sweeping down the dense laser light, the waterfall was the first to be destroyed. Large rocks fell into the water, stirring up waves. The rapid water rushed down like a dike, deafening. In the game, due to rules restrictions, the troops of each force cannot destroy the terrain. At most, they can level the woods, break the bridges, blow up the houses and buildings, etc. However, that is the rule of the game after all. This rule is not followed very much in the Red Alert world. With military power capable of destroying the world, isn't it too easy to destroy the terrain and environment? Swish swish swish. Rumble. Relying on the powerful destructive power, the group of laser UFOs bombarded them unscrupulously. After destroying the waterfall, they then bombarded the surrounding mountains. The rolling boulders smashed down, rumbling as if a huge earthquake had occurred. Damn it, the Empire of Mind is going to kill me at all costs. The area of this mountain is not small, and the large-scale indiscriminate destruction did not affect the cave where he was for a while. However, under the violent vibration, a large amount of earth and rocks also fell in the cave, causing Wang Ling to fall. They were all made to look disgraced. While waving his hands to disperse the dust, Wang Ling also complained, It's been exposed. We can't stay in this place anymore. It's only a matter of time before we're bombarded. It's such a feeling to brave the bombardment of a laser UFO all night to escape. It's uncomfortable. Swish swish swish. Rumble. Those laser UFOs could not hear Wang Ling's complaints, and were still destroying them rapidly. Under the sweeping bombardment, the entire mountain nearly collapsed, and it didn't take long for them to reach the cave where Wang Ling was. Roar. The moment the cave collapsed, Wang Ling transformed into the form of a wild beast king and rushed out of the falling rocks. After landing, before the group of laser UFOs could transfer their firepower, he quickly jumped to the place where he was drying his clothes. Pick it up in the rubble, then run away. Swish swish swish. The reaction speed of the laser UFO was not slow. After the last round of mountain bombardment, it found the target and immediately transferred its firepower. In the process of Wang Ling desperately running out of the bombing zone, he was hit by more than 10 laser beams. The bombardment of light. If these more than 10 laser rays hit an ordinary soldier, they would have been turned into ashes. Even an ordinary tank would have been exploded. However, Wang Ling was able to withstand it with his abnormal physique. Of course, he was not feeling well either. His body was almost torn to pieces and scarred by the bombardment. The hideous wounds were constantly seeping with scarlet blood. Even with his quick recovery ability, he could not recover from such injuries in a short time. Fortunately, he had already recovered all his internal injuries in the real world. Otherwise, Wang Ling would have had to deal with this round of bombardment. Roar. Wang Ling was angry in his heart, but now he had to endure it. With a roar, his body expanded rapidly, he casually wrapped his tattered clothes around his waist, let go of his speed and ran with all his strength, and was hit by 5 or 6 more laser beams. Price quickly rushed out of this dangerous zone. No wonder he was so embarrassed and useless. There were more than 30 laser UFOs that came to the waterfall area to search this time. How strong is the combined firepower? No matter how strong Wang Ling's body is now, he can't withstand such a bombardment. Let alone the hard steel left behind, even if he runs a step slower, he will die. Buzz buzz. As for the Seoul Empire, it was determined to eliminate Wang Ling. This huge threat could not be returned to the coalition forces. Not to mention that the more than 30 laser UFOs refused to give up and continued to chase Wang Ling from behind. After the location information of Wang Ling was exposed, the surrounding Yuri bases stationed far or near all sent out a large number of laser UFOs and even momentum troops overnight to chase and intercept Wang Ling. They would really have trouble sleeping and eating unless Wang Ling was eliminated. Got it? Asshole. Mind Empire, Yuri. Just wait for me. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 856. Boom. 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 In the dark night, a tall figure quickly crossed the hills and came to the plain, maintaining a super fast speed and continuing to run wildly. This figure is naturally Wang Ling. He originally slept well tonight, but he was woken up by the laser UFO and destroyed his hiding place. Even if he was reluctant to escape at night, Wang Ling had to do it. Having transformed into the tall beast king form several times in succession, Wang Ling is now becoming more and more familiar with this unit mode. When he runs, he almost jumps forward, and every step seems to be a giant stride. For 10 seconds, for almost 8 seconds or more, neither of his feet touched the ground. His speed was as fast as he could maintain, and the whooshing wind in his ears could be heard almost non-stop. It was cloudy tonight, and the moonlight could not penetrate the thick clouds at all, making the wilderness land look particularly dark. However, after advanced enhancement, Wang Ling has the ability of night vision, and can easily see the surrounding environment. He can also dexterously avoid obstacles while running at high speed. If he can't avoid them, he simply relies on his strong body. If you force a breakthrough, Your speed will not be affected at all. Buzz buzz. Behind, the large numbers of laser UFOs were chasing after them relentlessly, but Wang Ling was now running at full speed, which was much faster than them. After chasing for a period of time, the distance between the two sides became wider and wider. While running at high speed, Wang Ling looked back and made sure that he was far enough away from the laser UFO. Then he suddenly turned 45 degrees, repeated his old trick, diverged from the original road, and continued running at high speed. After all, it was not clear whether there was an electronic map signal covering the Allied forces in this area. Wang Ling did not know whether his small movements were observed by the Mind Empire. During his subsequent escape, he changed direction several times, and the distance he ran along the way, enough to travel through 2 war zones. As for the double-strengthened body, although the physical strength is abnormal, it is not infinite after all. Moreover, it has been running at super high speed, and the physical energy consumption is even more intense. Even with his current physical fitness, he has obviously suffered from running for so long. Feeling exhausted, I had to stop, bending over and panting. After running around for so long, you should get rid of it, right? Wang Ling was also guessing while breathing. If he was still caught up after running for so long, he wouldn't be able to bear it if he kept running. Fortunately, after running for such a long time, his physical injuries have healed and he is not in such a miserable state. After taking a short rest, Wang Ling looked around. It was quiet and there was no trace of the pursuing army, so he relaxed a little. The body gradually shrank and returned to normal. After searching around, he found an abandoned factory nestled next to a small forest. Wang Ling was indeed tired after running away overnight for so long, and he was still feeling angry, so he decided to take a rest here. However, even this place was within the sphere of influence of the Seoul Empire. Not long after Wang Ling lay down, he heard noisy movement again. However, this time it was not a laser UFO, but hundreds of infantry and dozens of tanks, sweeping in from far to near in a sweeping sweep. "My dear, how many troops did you use just to catch me?" After seeing the mopping up team with his night vision, Wang Ling couldn't help but tease him. To be honest, with Wang Ling's current combat power, it would not take much effort to quickly deal with this group of troops. But now Wang Ling doesn't want to start a fight. After all, once he counterattacks, he will be directly exposed. These mopping up teams are just vanguards. Once exposed, various troops with momentum will follow immediately. Not to mention the will battles of the ground troops, which were enough to kill Wang Ling. Just the swarms of laser UFOs would have forced Wang Ling to retreat, and then it would be another great escape. "I can't afford to offend you, I can afford to hide." With these concerns in mind, Wang Ling decided not to provoke the mopping up troops. Taking advantage of the darkness, he hurriedly ran into the woods, found the densest tree here, and quickly scurried up to the top to hide. Susu! Susu! After the hiding was completed, the mopping up troops also arrived. Several rows of infantry broke into the woods. There was an infantryman every 2 or 3 meters apart, carrying a light source. Among them, many infantrymen inevitably swept under the tree where Wang Ling was, but their light sources were all swept flat, and they did not find Wang Ling on the tree at all. As a result, they swept past without a single person. Discovering Wang Ling, it was obvious that the electronic map signal of the Seoul Empire was not covered in this area. Call. Wang Ling also breathed a sigh of relief. However, before the mopping up troops could go far, another team composed of wild orcs came from behind and started mopping up again. "Uncle," Wang Ling had no choice but to continue to stay in the tree. Although arms like the wild orcs are still considered human arms, they carry the genes of beasts and can see clearly at night. The whole team is not equipped with a light source and just walks through empty-handed. "Hey, that little runt, there he is. I originally thought that I could sit back and relax by hiding in a tree, but I didn't expect that these wild orcs have really poisonous eyes. They were discovered hiding in a tree in the middle of the night. One of the wild orcs pointed directly at Wang Ling's position and shouted, alerting all the nearby raiding teams. "You're such a dwarf." Wang Ling had endured it for a long time, but he didn't expect to be exposed. He was so anxious that he jumped directly from the tree. In mid-air, he transformed into a large-sized wild beast king. With the help of the gravity of his fall, he hit hard with a heavy blow. The fist hit hard, blasting the shouting wild orc in an instant, and the shock in that moment even knocked several nearby wild orcs off their feet. "Here, that little dwarf. Bah, that big monster, he's here. Here, come quickly." After getting up, these wild orcs were also startled. They spread the word from 10 to 10. In the end, nearly all the Yuri troops in the entire area learned of Wang Ling's location. Even through the communication device of the Mind Empire, even the Yuri troops in the nearby area also got the news and rushed here in large numbers. Naturally, these wild beasts were the first to win the lottery. After escaping all night, Wang Ling was already angry, and now he is even more angry. "If the tiger doesn't show its power, you treat me like a sick cat? You call me a big monster, how dare you? Tisk tisk. Oh. Oh ho." While roaring, Wang Ling also launched an electromagnetic attack. A large area of electromagnetic energy suddenly surged from under the ground, forming a series of ferocious thunder dragons that shuttled through the entire forest. In a matter of seconds, this group of crazy people were killed. Kill all the orcs. While on the way to kill, Wang Ling had shrunk in size and took out an enhanced version of the AK rifle in his hand, with a fierce look in his eyes. "Isn't it better to just sweep them away honestly? I have to seek death. No one can have an easy time tonight, got it?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 857. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Oh. Oh ho. Dot. Even though Wang Ling was being chased all the time and was in a state of embarrassment, this guy's fighting ability was truly formidable. Otherwise, how could the Soul Empire spend so much manpower and material resources to hunt him down? Previously, he was chased by a laser UFO as his grandson, and he felt like he had no energy to use. But now a group of ground troops are also chasing him. How can Wang Ling hold back after being exposed? The King of Soldiers' enhanced AK rifle sprayed terrifying fire snakes at a very exaggerated speed, which looked particularly dazzling under the night sky. Wherever the fire snakes flew, infantrymen would fall down in response. Yuri's troops, which had originally encircled and suppressed them with great momentum, were finally suppressed by the powerful firepower and collapsed. The number of the entire encirclement and suppression troops was decreasing at an exaggerated speed. In the distance, tanks participating in the encirclement and suppression also followed. However, it was difficult for tanks to pass through this forest. Coupled with Wang Ling's focused targeting, these tanks also burst into flames and could not reach Wang Ling at all. He just stood in the woods, standing still despite the encirclement and suppression by the army. However, the encirclement and suppression troops could no longer withstand such fire suppression. Not long after the war started, more than 70% of their troops had been lost. Buzz buzz. Buzz buzz. Just when Wang Ling was about to go all out to wipe out the remaining encirclement and suppression troops, 8 laser UFOs suddenly broke into the rear of the troops. These 8 laser UFOs were originally searching not far away. After receiving Wang Ling's position signal, they naturally rushed over immediately. As a result, they caught up with this fierce battle, so they immediately accelerated their speed and tried to take the opportunity to kill Wang Ling. When Wang Ling saw these laser UFOs, his anger became even more intense. However, this time he did not choose to continue escaping. Instead, he accelerated his speed. After killing the approaching ground troops, he transformed into a king-level anti-aircraft infantry. The reason why he was chased by laser UFOs before was because there were too many laser UFOs and Wang Ling couldn't resist them. But now there are 8 of them. Who should he look down on? Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. Tisk tisk. Carrying the barrel of the gun, Wang Ling straightened up without saying a word. After advanced enhancement, Wang Ling became more comfortable in using the abilities of various types of soldiers. The most familiar one among them was the ability of the magnetic explosive infantry. Previously, elite combat soldiers injected electromagnetic energy into the bullets of AK rifles. Now, for anti-aircraft infantry, the electromagnetic energy has been injected into anti-aircraft artillery shells, which not only strengthens their firepower, but is also powerful enough to withstand 7 or 8 of them. The combined firepower of an elite anti-aircraft infantry volley has some additional deceleration and paralysis functions. Being bombarded by the anti-aircraft shells, the power devices of the laser UFOs were slightly affected, and their flight speed also slowed down a bit. As a result, the 8 laser UFOs were also in bad luck. Half of them were shot down on the way close, and the remaining half did not have full health. Facing the powerful anti-aircraft firepower, the 4 laser UFOs quickly fired laser beams at Wang Ling, trying to kill Wang Ling desperately. But in the end, only 6 light prism rays hit Wang Ling, and all 4 laser UFOs were destroyed. Although the 6 laser beams injured Wang Ling, they were far from enough to kill him. Although it is Wang Ling's current nemesis, this laser UFO cannot suppress Wang Ling at all unless it is suppressed by numbers. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. After eliminating these 8 laser UFOs, Wang Ling had no time to celebrate, and regardless of his own injuries, he quickly switched back to elite combat soldiers. After several rounds of strafing, he successfully annihilated the remaining encirclement and suppression troops nearby. However, taking advantage of the delay of this group of encirclement and suppression troops and laser UFOs, more troops gathered in the distance, and there were even many laser UFOs in the sky. If he continued to resist in this state, Wang Ling was in great danger and could only run away. However, Wang Ling had not fully recovered his physical strength after running away overnight for so long, and now he was about to start running away again. Not to mention that he was not very accepting physically, but the psychological boredom and irritation alone made Wang Ling very resistant. "Uncle, hey, let me go back." And this entanglement lasted for a while. Wang Ling finally made a decision, simply contacted Uncle He, and ran away from the entire red alert world. While staying at the transfer station, Wang Ling was still complaining, "Has this Soul Empire been fed up with gunpowder? It's like a mad dog, chasing him endlessly." Uncle He smiled and said, "You can't blame the Mind Empire for this. You escaped from under the eyes of the Mind Empire and caused them to lose face. What's more, your current combat power has already put the Mind Empire on pins and needles. The threat is huge. How could I let you go so easily? TCH, being chased like a grandson in the middle of the night is really infuriating." Wang Ling spat, obviously still angry. "Special cases will be treated with special treatment. Originally, I wanted to follow the normal biological clock and rest time. The 2 worlds communicate with each other, but it seems that it can't be done now. The Soul Empire mobilized so many troops to surround me alone, so don't blame me for being a rogue." "Haha, that's right. You are a player. You must know how to take advantage of the player's advantages. Successful people don't care about means." Uncle He smiled, looking like a child who could be taught. But Wang Ling ignored him and turned around and returned to the real world. The 2 injuries in the red alert world were both bruised, and his body in the real world was also injured. The bed he was on was now soaked with blood, making it very uncomfortable to stay on it. After returning, Wang Ling quickly got out of the bed. Xiao He was even looking at Wang Ling with a worried expression. "Don't worry, it will heal soon. This injury is still not fatal." Seeing Xiao He, Wang Ling's original anger suddenly dissipated. He smiled and touched the dog's head, comforting the guy. Then he lay back in the kennel again. But Wang Ling couldn't rest for a while. He casually removed the blood-red sheets and quilts, threw them aside, replaced them with new ones, and sat there for a while, waiting for all the injuries on the body to heal before leaving. "I went to the bathroom, rinsed these things, and then wiped myself." After finishing this, it was already late at night. Wang Ling was indeed tired after running away all night in the red alert world. After returning to the dormitory, he lay on the bed and fell asleep within a short time. Wang Ling's so-called roguery is actually very simple to say. It is nothing more than using his identity as a player to adjust the travel time between the two worlds. On weekdays, Wang Ling spends a day in the red alert world and then returns to the real world to rest. But now in this special period, when he is being chased and intercepted, Wang Ling also needs to maintain strong energy and physical strength, so he has to use the buffer of the real world. No matter what time, as long as he is tired, he can go directly back to the real world to rest for a day and regain enough energy. Return to the world of red alert. In this way, he almost always maintains sufficient energy and physical strength in the red alert world. How can the pursuers of the Mind Empire catch up with him? Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 858. The Mind Empire was determined to eliminate Wang Ling and pursued and intercepted him at almost any cost. And this encirclement and suppression plan, to put it bluntly, is actually a forced war of attrition, using a large number of troops to search and round up like moths to a flame, wearing down Wang Ling's mental and physical energy. Even if it only hurts him 1 point at a time, it will destroy all his. If you divide your strength, if you continue, a will battle will kill him. However, Wang Ling turned rogue and used the identity of the player to enter and leave the red alert world at will. Just imagine, at a huge cost, Yuri's troops managed to wear down Wang Ling until he was seriously injured and exhausted. With a little more effort, they could kill him completely. But in the blink of an eye, this guy suddenly seemed to be resurrected with full health, and all the status it was full in an instant. How depressed would this make Yuri's troops? I'm afraid vomiting blood is minor. But there is no way. Who makes Wang Ling a player? The entire red alert world is Wang Ling's training ground. A group of NPCs are trying every means to kill him. Can't they just play rogue? For this reason, Wang Ling didn't feel any shame at all. The presence of the old god simply brought his shameless spirit to the limit. After a good sleep, he slept peacefully until dawn. After getting up, Wang Ling stretched out exaggeratedly. "Ha, I had a really comfortable sleep this time. Woof woof." Xiao He has also woken up, squatting next to Wang Ling, wagging his tail vigorously, looking quite energetic. Wang Ling smiled, ravaged Xiao He's head, washed up and went to the cafeteria. Speaking of which, Wang Ling has not done morning exercises in the real world for a long time. Now that his body has been double strengthened and he has absolute control over his own strength, there is no need for morning exercises. Breakfast was rather sparse and ordinary, just soy milk, tofu curd, instant noodles, and some sesame seed cakes, but Wang Ling bought enough breakfast for 5 people. After eating, I was still not satisfied. Before I left, I bought a spare meal for 10 people. I also went to the supermarket and bought a bunch of meat snacks. I carried a big backpack and returned to the dormitory. This is how a leisurely and decadent day began. Wang Ling's current appetite will not be exhausted no matter how much food he eats. The excess energy will only be stored by his body and will be slowly consumed when encountering special situations in the future, just like a camel's hump. The same, but more efficient. With this ability, Wang Ling is not short of money, so he can eat as much as he wants. On this day, Wang Ling slept, ate, slept, and ate. The whole living situation of a pig was not to mention how lazy he was. However, his laziness was actually just recuperating his spirit and conserving energy to prepare for the red alert world at night. That night, while others were sleepy, Wang Ling was full of energy. He had eaten almost everything for the day and had full energy stored in his body. After adjusting his condition to the best, Wang Ling returned to the world of red alert. In the world of red alert, Wang Ling was still facing the encirclement and suppression by the army of the Soul Empire. The last time he left, he escaped with injuries overnight and experienced another encirclement and suppression, and his condition was very bad. But now, as if he was resurrected with full health, Yuri's large troops came one after another. The various troops seemed to consume Wang Ling to death, but Wang Ling turned his head, roared wildly, and his body quickly expanded and rose, transforming into the Beast King turned into a giant, and then ran away. The flying speed was simply better than before. A bunch of Yuri troops were dumbfounded, and they were all left behind in a short time. They didn't know that Wang Ling came back after recuperating his energy in the real world. They just thought that Wang Ling was squeezing his own potential to escape, so the whole army was ordered to speed up and chase him at all costs, trying not to give him any trouble. Wang Ling's chance to rest. Whoosh! 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 And Wang Ling had long been prepared for a protracted battle with them. He turned around and gave a ferocious smile. He then jumped forward and jumped a considerable distance in one step. Everything around him seemed to be passing by in a hurry. Swept back quickly. This speed is even faster than the full speed of the laser UFO. How can ordinary troops catch up with him? No matter how much he speeded up, he couldn't catch up with him. After a period of chasing, he finally lost Wang Ling, which caused the surrounding commanders to yell and scold him. At the same time, they mobilized their troops even harder to conduct a large-scale search. In normal times, during this search, I would have to worry about being exposed almost all the time, and even resting peacefully would be a problem. But now, Wang Ling had no such worries at all. After turning several times in succession, he was sure that he had completely shaken off the tails, so he slowed down and ran in a general direction. Even with his advanced enhanced body, Wang Ling could not maintain his previous desperate running for too long. However, if he slowed down his speed and maintained it to the original ultimate speed after intermediate enhancement, with Wang Ling's current physical fitness, even if he ran like crazy, one day and one night is not a problem. Of course, this is an ideal situation. In fact, the Soul Empire is determined to search for Wang Ling. They can encounter Soul Empire troops almost everywhere. Whenever they encounter them, Wang Ling has to choose another direction and speed up. Evacuate. The direction of evacuation seems to change frequently, but in fact Wang Ling has always been fleeing in the direction away from the Ruishan branch in his mind. No matter how many times he changes, he will always turn back in the end. After all, he was within the sphere of influence of the Soul Empire. There was no signal from the coalition forces or even the allied forces. Wang Ling could not check the electronic map. There was even no radio signal and he could not contact his own troops, so he could only escape like this. Unless he collides with the coalition forces head-on, or leaves the sphere of influence of the Mind Empire, breaks into a war zone, receives signals from the two armies, restores contact, and has reinforcements, then Wang Ling will be considered truly safe. Before that, Wang Ling could only fight and flee. Fortunately, Wang Ling was not that stubborn. He was annoyed by the Mind Empire and took advantage of his identity as a player. Maintaining an almost rogue mentality, Wang Ling has been doing the same thing for 3 consecutive days. Whenever he is tired, or is hit by the Mind Empire, or is seriously injured in the will battle, he will instantly return to the real world, and then come back. It is already full. This time and twice, The Seoul Empire could grit their teeth and accept it, thinking that Wang Ling was at the end of his strength and was squeezing himself to escape. However, this happened 6 or 7 times in a row. Each time, Wang Ling was almost cheating and could instantly return to full state and escape. Not to mention the troops who were killed, even the mentality of the commanders collapsed. When the news reached the headquarters, all the senior officials were furious. Yuri himself even got furious and cursed, "What a bunch of trash. The troops from dozens of bases can't catch Wang Ling alone. How dare anyone else touch his brow? I can only bite the bullet and just listen." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 859. Haha, another beautiful sleep. Wang Ling was repeatedly run away from his full state, which drove the Seoul Empire almost crazy, but Wang Ling was very at ease. On this day, he returned from the Red Alert World with injuries. After cleaning up, he slept until dawn. All the injuries on his body were recovered and he was full of energy. Wang Ling could not be more comfortable or at ease. Woof woof. Xiao He has long been accustomed to Wang Ling's situation in the past few days. Even when he wakes up every night to change the blood-stained sheets and bedding, he is already used to it. He gets up early in the morning and rushes to Wang Ling full of energy. "Hello." Wang Ling was also happy. He petted the dog for a long time, washed up, and went out to forage as usual. Wang Ling has almost become accustomed to escaping in the Red Alert world and recuperating and storing energy in the real world in the past few days. He originally thought that this day would be spent like this, but he would not adjust until he found an organization in the Red Alert world. But unexpectedly, I encountered an uninvited guest today. Just when Wang Ling had breakfast and was shopping in the supermarket, he suddenly received a call from Professor Li Dong. Seeing this name, Wang Ling's heart suddenly jumped for some reason. This old professor, why are you looking for him? However, Wang Ling still answered the phone honestly, "Hello, Teacher Li Dong." "Ang, it's me." "Wang Ling, where are you now? Where's the school supermarket?" "Teacher, what do you want?" "Haha, I just wanted to chat with you. I happen to be on the way to the cafeteria and will be there soon. You should find a seat first." "Good." After hanging up the phone, Wang Ling frowned slightly. Wang Ling had always been wary of Professor Li Dong because he suspected Wang Ling of deep hypnosis. Now he suddenly asked him to chat. He didn't know what would happen. "Okay, no matter what, let's go and have a meeting first." After thinking for a while, Wang Ling made a decision. Anyway, he had the skills of hypnosis and mind control at his side, so he was not afraid of being exposed. The school supermarket is on the second floor of the cafeteria. Wang Ling gave up shopping immediately and returned to the cafeteria. He helped buy a simple breakfast and found a hidden table to sit down. After waiting for a while, he met Professor Li Dong. This old professor still wore his familiar clothes, as if he would never change his clothes, with a smile on his face. The school cafeteria is a little deserted in the early morning, but there are still many students who get up early. As a famous professor of the school, Teacher Li Dong is very popular here, and people are constantly saying hello to him. Professor Li Dong also responded with a smile. After a short glance, he saw Wang Ling. His eyes lit up and he walked straight over. "Good morning, teacher." In a polite manner, Wang Ling quickly stood up and said hello. After Professor Li Dong responded, he pressed his hand repeatedly to signal Wang Ling to sit down. After seeing those breakfasts, Professor Li Dong was obviously very satisfied. "Haha, I'm interested. I haven't eaten yet." "Thank you, Wang Ling." Wang Ling said nothing, watching Professor Li Dong drink the soy milk as if no one else was watching, but he kept frowning, not knowing what he wanted to do. After eating half of the meal, Professor Li Dong raised his head and asked, "How are you doing lately?" It's okay, just a little boring, Wang Ling rambled casually. Professor Li Dong has been in the industry for a long time, how can you not see Wang Ling's perfunctory attitude? However, he was not surprised. While eating, he casually chatted about home affairs, asking about Wang Ling's daily life, and asking him if he had encountered any problems that he didn't understand recently. Wang Ling also dealt with it casually, trying to downplay his own presence. After asking and answering questions like this for a while, Wang Ling became impatient. Teacher, did you call me here just to ask these questions? Haha, of course not. Professor Li Dong happened to finish his breakfast, picked up toilet paper and wiped his mouth. Then he corrected his tone and asked, Wang Ling, to be honest, have you been undergoing deep hypnosis during this time? And there were mistakes along the way. Sure enough, Professor Li Dong found him for the purpose of deep hypnosis. However, since the special training of Yuri's clone in the Red Alert world, Wang Ling had seen how dangerous the extra-dimensional system would be if it was exposed. How could he dare to reveal it to the outside world? Professor, you are joking. You always feel that I am in deep hypnosis. Am I wronged? In the world of Red Alert, Wang Ling has already tempered his mentality. When he talks about these lies, he does not blush. Out of breath. Really, Professor Li Dong smiled mysteriously, however, I feel that I have not wronged you. Some time ago, were you hospitalized because of an error in deep hypnosis? Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. Didn't he mean that no one knew except Lao Shui and Lily? Why did Professor Li Dong also know? We have tried our best to eliminate the impact and delete the records of that experience, but why did the news still reach Professor Li Dong's ears? Everyone else is easy to deceive, but this old professor is not so easy to deceive. What? Looking at your expression, are you right? Just when Wang Ling was feeling anxious, Professor Li Dong smiled again. He was like Wang Ling's supervisor. Whenever Wang Ling revealed something strange, he would be keenly aware of it. This feeling really made Wang Ling unhappy. In the past, Wang Ling would have been hard-pressed to deal with this situation and could only make random excuses. But now, Wang Ling has his own way of dealing with it. He did not answer Professor Li Dong's question immediately. Instead, he repeated his old trick. He focused his eyes and released his spiritual power, trying to influence Professor Li Dong's nerves and subconscious to achieve a hypnotic effect. However, with his strong mental power, when he came into contact with Professor Li Dong's brain signal, he seemed to be electrocuted, and after a tremor, he was bounced back. This. Wang Ling was confused, but he did not give up. Instead, he cast a further mental connection, hoping to directly control his mind. Buzz. However, what shocked Wang Ling came. As soon as this spiritual connection came into contact with Professor Li Dong's eyebrows, it immediately bounced back to him as if it had hit a golden bell. It was so strong that Wang Ling's consciousness was shaken and fell into a trance. After regaining consciousness, Wang Ling felt a storm in his heart. His current mental power is so strong that even in the Red Alert world, few people can match him. Except for Yuri, who can absolutely defeat him, even the generals and ministers of the Soul Empire are weaker than him. With such powerful spiritual power, shouldn't it be easy to use hypnosis to hypnotize ordinary people in the real world? But with Professor Li Dong, not only did the hypnosis fail, but even the mind control was forcibly rebounded. The mental resistance was so strong that it was simply unbreakable, not even inferior to Wang Ling. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 860. What's going on? How can the mental resistance of ordinary people be so strong? Is Professor Li Dong too special, or is my mental power too limited? Wang Ling frowned, full of questions in his shock. Not only him, but even Professor Li Dong was surprised. Before Wang Ling could say anything, he asked, "Did you just plan to use hypnosis on me?" Wang Ling was even more shocked. Good guy, the hypnosis failed, the mind control failed, and Professor Li Dong finally noticed it. How should Wang Ling answer this kind of question? In fact, without giving Wang Ling much time to think, Professor Li Dong had already started asking, "What a strange hypnosis technique. Without any warning or any instructions, I feel suddenly in a trance. Is this hypnosis technique of yours? Who did you learn it from? Did you learn it during deep hypnosis? Teacher, why is your mental resistance so strong? Even hypnosis is ineffective on you." As for Wang Ling, hypnotism has been exposed and he cannot deny it at all. However, it is impossible for him to tell the origin of hypnosis. He can only skip the topic and ask questions that puzzle him. And Professor Li Dong did not hesitate in his answer, "Haha, is it weird? Don't forget, I know hypnosis myself. Although my hypnosis is very simple, I am a member of the sect after all, and I have ways to resist it. Hypnosis, isn't it normal?" Wang Ling didn't know if he could believe the sentence. He pursed his lips and remained silent, but he was still in a mess inside. Since Wang Ling refused to explain the origin of hypnosis, Professor Li Dong did not ask too much. Instead, he jumped back to the previous topic. "Let me just say, in a special case like yours, the people at the hospital I didn't pay any attention to you, I just said you overslept. Now it seems that you were afraid that the secret would be exposed, so you used hypnosis on them, right?" Good guy, Professor Li Dong is really refusing to give in and pressing forward every step of the way. But he guessed it right, and even understood Wang Ling's thoughts clearly. Standing in front of him, Wang Ling felt as if he had been seen through, and all the secrets seemed to be unkeepable. This feeling made him quite uncomfortable and even extremely nervous, even more so than being chased by Yuri's troops. "Well." Professor Li Dong took a deep breath, leaned on the backrest, and continued, "You think you have done it carefully enough, but in fact it is still not clean enough. At least, you don't have special hypnosis at the Dean, so you let me all the news channels have received the details of your hospitalization." Today's Professor Li Dong really looked like he was strapped with bombs. Every time he spoke a word, one would detonate. The power of that explosion made Wang Ling's head buzz. It is true that Wang Ling did not specifically hypnotize the Dean, but he used mind control to inquire about it. The Dean was not very impressed with Wang Ling, and did not even take Wang Ling to heart, so he did not specifically hypnotize him. But unexpectedly, Professor Li Dong would use this as a breakthrough to find out about Wang Ling. Not to mention that this matter may spread because of this, Wang Ling is already very worried just now with Professor Li Dong. "Haha, don't be so nervous." This aroused Wang Ling's most sensitive nerve, but Professor Li Dong added, "You are still not thorough enough in this matter. To put it bluntly, your experience is still insufficient. Too much be too innocent. But don't worry too much, I have completely sealed it for you and the news will not spread." "You killed them?" Wang Ling was startled and almost stood up. But Professor Li Dong couldn't laugh or cry for a while. "What are you thinking? Am I so dark that I can kill people? Don't forget, I can also use hypnosis. Although it's not as strange as yours, there is still no problem in solving this matter." Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. However, as soon as he finished taking this breath, he immediately realized something was wrong. With his exclamation just now, didn't he acknowledge Professor Li Dong's statement in disguise? Damn it, the old one is still the best. Wang Ling can't defeat this old professor. As expected, Professor Li Dong noticed Wang Ling's reaction and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, obviously understanding it. However, he didn't seem to be completely sure, and finally asked Wang Ling for confirmation. Wang Ling, I have said so much, and I have helped you a lot secretly. Seeing that I have helped you so much, it is you again for the sake of the teacher, please tell me the truth, have you really come into contact with deep hypnosis? Is it because of the deep hypnosis that you are in the hospital? After being pressed to this point by the old professor, Wang Ling almost doubted his life. The existence of the extra-dimensional system seemed to be on the verge of being exposed, which made Wang Ling's heart beat faster. To be honest, guarding the secrets of the different dimensional system alone, although Wang Ling became more and more powerful, he actually became more and more panicked, and even felt a little lonely and tired. If there was someone who could really listen to his secret, maybe it would be his fault. Rely on. But. Sorry, teacher, I'm really confused. I don't quite understand what you said. I did learn a little bit about hypnosis, but the method is not very correct and the process is too painful, so I don't want to reveal where I learned it. As for the hospitalization was my personal reason, not because of deep hypnosis. Although I was interested in deep hypnosis, I had no access to it. Wang Ling finally chose to refuse to admit it and prepared to keep the secret alone. He really wanted to have someone to rely on, but Wang Ling was even more afraid that the existence of the extra-dimensional system would be exposed. Although Professor Li Dong seems to be very reliable, in fact, through today's contact with Wang Ling, he found that this old professor is more unfathomable than he imagined, and Wang Ling cannot see through him at all. It's not that I don't trust anyone, it's that human nature is too sinister and I can't believe it at all. The wonderful function of the different dimensional system is too magical, and the temptation is too powerful. Faced with this temptation, human beings find it difficult to remain rational and full of desires. No matter how kind a soul is, once it loses its restraints and is dominated by desire, it will gradually turn into a demon. Oh? Is this your final answer? As for Professor Li Dong, after listening to the test and even outrightly guessing for so long, he almost broke the window paper, but he didn't expect that Wang Ling refused to admit it in the end, which somewhat surprised him. Wang Ling really didn't dare to stay here any longer and nodded firmly, "That's right. Teacher, we've had breakfast and you've finished speaking. I won't accompany you anymore. Let's go first." After saying that, he left his seat. But when he just took steps, Professor Li Dong finally said, "Wang Ling, this is a good warning. However, there is something I hope you can remember. The relationship between you and me is not hostile. Not now and not in the future. You are still very young and have unlimited possibilities in the future. You must yearn for freedom." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 861. Huh? What do you mean? He originally planned to leave, but Professor Li Dong's last words confused Wang Ling. He couldn't help but stop again and turned around to ask. However, the old professor, who had been so eloquent before that Wang Ling could not even speak anymore, now looked like he was keeping secrets and smiled without saying a word. Wang Ling was really confused, but Professor Li Dong refused to say it clearly, so he couldn't ask further. He really didn't want to stay in this place anymore, so he didn't go to the supermarket anymore. He just carried a few simple foods and hurried back to the dormitory. Lying on the bed in the dormitory, Wang Ling was also in a mess. Who is Professor Li Dong? How certain is he now about the so-called deep hypnosis? What does that last piece of advice mean? Why do you say it's not a hostile relationship? And why specifically warn him to yearn for freedom? Why? Why? My head is full of questions and my mind is in turmoil. Tisk, tisk, this person is not simple. Just when Wang Ling was impatient, Uncle He also started to exclaim, "I'm sure that he is 99% sure that you are undergoing deep hypnosis, but you don't want to admit it," so he didn't pierce the last layer of window paper. This was not a good signal. Although Wang Ling resisted, he still nodded honestly. That's right, Professor Li Dong is not someone else. You can't deceive him at all. In addition, he has always been pursuing the depth of the theory of hypnosis, can easily associate me with that aspect. Looking at the way he looked just now, it is obvious that he has already made a conclusion in his mind. Even if I refuse to admit it, I can no longer change his point of view. Then how about killing him and settling the matter? Uncle He brought up the old story again and talked about this extreme approach. In the past, Wang Ling would have refused without even thinking about it, but now with a 99% chance of exposure, Wang Ling became entangled. However, after struggling like this for a while, Wang Ling still chose to refuse. No, in the real world, I don't want to leave a stain. Although I don't know who Professor Li Dong is and what his attitude is, but his last words in short, it is not a hostile relationship, but I feel that I can believe it. There is a 99% chance of being exposed, but there is still a 0.1% possibility. As long as I bite the bullet and refuse to admit it, this layer of window paper will not poke broken. Just think about it, I'm too lazy to suggest anything after being together for so long. Uncle He was used to Wang Ling's style, and he didn't expect Wang Ling to agree. Wang Ling didn't care what Uncle He's attitude was. After the topic was stopped, he closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time. Suddenly something occurred to him and he asked quickly, Uncle He, Professor Li Dong, is he the one who sent the interdimensional system to us, to my mystery man? Why do you think so? Uncle He asked calmly. Wang Ling replied, I never thought about this at first, but today, hypnosis and mind control all failed, so I have to doubt it. How can normal people have such strong mental resistance? Moreover, this abnormal person just urged me to do deep hypnosis. Now that I think about it carefully, I feel that this deep hypnosis seems to be just an excuse, alluding to a different dimensional system. So you suspect that Li Dong gave this extra-dimensional system to you and supervises your use at all times? Uncle He asked with a smile. Wang Ling nodded, that's right. Haha. You have a very rich imagination. However, Uncle He vetoed him, although I don't have the authority to tell you who gave you the extra-dimensional system, I can tell you clearly that this person is not Li Dong. Isn't it? Hee, that gives me a headache. Who is he? Is deep hypnosis not an excuse, but really just a coincidence? Wang Ling rubbed his temples, and there were more and more question marks in his mind, but, what did he mean by the last words he said to me? From his tone, it seemed like he knew much more than I thought. If you want to know his identity, you don't have to worry too much. You can use the system's advanced exchange function and send some soldiers to follow him. Uncle He made another note. However, Wang Ling still refused. That's inappropriate. With Professor Li Dong's ability, the probability of being discovered is very high. And once discovered, it will appear to be a guilty conscience. It was originally covered with a layer of window paper. I'm afraid it will be even worse. It's fragile, it might break if you blow it lightly. This won't work, and that won't work either. What else do you want? Uncle He really had nothing to do with him. And what can Wang Ling do? Professor Li Dong's surprise attack was so unexpected that Wang Ling was caught off guard. After thinking silently for a long time, Wang Ling sighed, forget it, let's keep the status quo. At least one thing I'm sure of is that if I don't take the initiative to provoke him, he won't cause trouble for me for no reason. Just think about it. Professor Li Dong's matter has come to an end for the time being. Although he is not clear about the identity and purpose of this old professor, Wang Ling still chooses to believe the old professor's last words. After letting go of this matter, life returned to on track. Wang Ling spent almost the whole day cultivating his spirit. At night, when others were sleeping, he returned to the Red Alert world in full condition. The last time he left the Red Alert world, the local time was in the early morning. However, Wang Ling, who had been running all night, was accidentally discovered by Yuri's troops and bit him. After a deadly battle, he was killed by more than 10 ships. Laser UFO was severely damaged, barely half of them were killed, and he suddenly left while running away. This return was still at that time. Wang Ling, who seemed to be in poor condition in the eyes of Yuri's troops, suddenly returned to full form at this moment, running wildly with that long stride, like riding a horse in the world of mortals, without a trace. It didn't take long to get rid of all the pursuers. Ah! Let him run away again. What's going on with him? He's just like Xiaoqiang who can't be killed. After being escaped by Wang Ling time and time again, not to mention the commander, even the soldiers who were desperately chasing him had their mentality broken. However, Wang Ling doesn't care what their mentality is. If the whole country comes to surround and suppress him alone, why don't you want to use some tricks? Once Wang Ling escaped, it would be difficult to catch up with him. Every time he was surrounded and suppressed these times, he happened to bump into the search team. However, there are not so many coincidences. Even if the Seoul Empire uses more troops, it will not be able to spread throughout the entire sphere of influence. Usually Wang Ling will run in this area for a long time before he can bump into so many teams. Today, Wang Ling also went out with this mentality. He ran in one direction for nearly half a day. He thought it would last for a long time before he met the enemy. But as soon as this thought flashed through his mind, something happened in front of him. I bumped into more than a dozen laser UFOs that were sweeping away. Damn it, I'm a bit off my back today, Wang Ling cursed. He wouldn't be able to defeat more than a dozen laser UFOs if he wanted to attack them, but he himself would also be severely damaged, so it wasn't worth it. Wang Ling didn't choose to fight back, but he didn't stop either. Instead, he just rushed forward, using his super-fast running speed to cross the laser UFO's fire circle, and received 7 or 8 laser blasts on his body. The light hit the skin and opened the flesh. However, these days, Wang Ling has long been accustomed to this kind of injury. He just spit and had no intention of slowing down. He kept running for a while. When he turned around and couldn't see the shadow of the laser UFO, he was about to turn around and continue his escape, but unexpectedly, at the end of his line of sight, a group of troops was stationed, and the color of that troop turned out to be the bright red that represents the coalition forces. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 862. Ha ha ha, I finally found the organization. After fleeing for several days and nights from the Ruishan branch of the Seoul Empire, he finally bumped into his own troops of the coalition. At this moment, Wang Ling was simply ecstatic. He didn't even have time to think about it, and he didn't even try to change direction and run away. He just rushed straight towards the coalition troops. Only when I got closer did I realize that this was an entire coalition base that was on the move. There are hundreds of infantrymen sitting around in this base, taking turns eating lunch, and dozens of others are patrolling around. There were hundreds of tanks of various types parked nearby, and more than 30 armed helicopters hovering in the sky. And in the center of the army is naturally the core of the entire base, the base vehicle. Because he was too excited, Wang Ling didn't even think of changing his form. He was still in the form of a huge wild beast king, which was very conspicuous, and there was quite a lot of movement when running. When he got close and saw the coalition lineup, that however, the soldiers patrolling the base also discovered his presence. Indeed, these soldiers were really surprised after seeing Wang Ling, but unlike what he imagined, these soldiers were not surprised, but frightened. Although there are enough troops for a base, they are taking turns eating lunch now, and the base is also on the way to move, and there are no defensive buildings at all. The most important thing is that Wang Ling's current state is indeed too scary. The 3-meter-tall wild beast king only has his lower body tied with tattered clothes to hide his shame. His strong body is exposed as much as possible. It looks like it's full of explosive power. Not to mention their unfamiliar faces. Even if old men like Sundahu and Erla came here, they wouldn't recognize Wang Ling at all when they saw him in this state. Enemy attack, enemy attack. Enemy attack. Prepare to fight. Not only did they not recognize Wang Ling's identity, but because of Wang Ling's state, they even mistook Wang Ling for a soldier of the Soul Empire. After all, they didn't know about the Wild Beast King. Under the alarm of these patrolling soldiers, the soldiers in the entire base were startled, then jumped up quickly, put down their lunch, picked up their firearms, and stood in front of the blockade. Various tanks and vehicles also hurriedly got into position. The armed helicopters in the sky are also lined up, and the lineup can be described as luxurious. Wang Ling was still excited at first, but he heard the word enemy attack from a long distance away. When he looked at their battle formation, he immediately understood what was going on, so he hurriedly slid forward and stopped, heading towards the entire coalition force. Waved frequently, "Don't fire, one of our own, I am Wang Ling." Wang Ling? Which Wang Ling? Don't be fooled by him, we don't have any comrades from the orcs. Yes, that's right, and they are much bigger than the average wild orcs. I'm sure it's another conspiracy of the Soul Empire. It seemed that Wang Ling had disappeared from the sight of the coalition forces for too long. Just by mentioning his name, a group of infantry guards did not recognize him at all, and even questioned him while talking to each other. TCH, damn it, I forgot about the Wild Beast King. Wang Ling relied on his keen hearing to hear their conversation, and then realized what they were afraid of. So his body immediately shrank into a normal human body, and he took out an AK rifle out of thin air and fired rapidly into the sky for a few seconds. Then shouted again, "I am Wang Ling, an elite combat soldier of the coalition, Senior Colonel Wang Ling." "Sir Wang Ling. Oh my God, it's him. I just said, why is such a name so familiar? I actually met Commander Wang Ling. He is my idol." After all, as a hero of the entire coalition, even though Wang Ling disappeared for several months, his name was still resounding throughout the coalition. After hearing Wang Ling announce his family name, a group of infantrymen finally recognized him. "But, Sir Wang Ling, it is true that you are our hero, but our hero was controlled by the Mind Empire a few months ago. How can you prove your alignment? We clearly saw that you are a wild orc before." Form. There are always rational people in the army. Wang Ling's experience has long been spread within the coalition. Everyone knows that the hero of the coalition was framed and controlled by the Soul Empire, and even the entire coalition went crazy for a while. Of course they couldn't believe it when they suddenly saw Wang Ling again. Wang Ling was so anxious that he scolded Yuri in his heart, and then shouted loudly, "You are confused, am I in a state of control? Just take a closer look to see if there is a spiritual connection above my head." After all, some of the rules of the Red Alert world were not fully followed in the game. There was no electronic map, and Wang Ling was barely wearing clothes that could indicate his identity and camp. A group of people could not recognize his camp for a while. However, even with Wang Ling's suggestion, some people in the team were still worried. "Sir, you are so far away from us, we can't see clearly." "Tisk, it's too much trouble," Wang Ling gritted his teeth and planned to get closer. But as soon as he took a step, someone in the team shouted, "No, don't come here. Sir, if you are still hostile, you are too close to us, and we can't stop your firepower. This is neither advancing nor retreating. Is it so troublesome to confirm your identity?" At this time, Wang Ling was really impatient. But just when he was about to force his way forward, a different voice came out from the team, "I believe him. Let him come over." "Team leader." A group of infantrymen responded quickly, feeling that a captain-level figure had arrived. This voice seemed familiar to Wang Ling, but he couldn't remember who it was for a moment. but now I couldn't care less about it. With the command from that voice, a group of infantrymen finally opened the door and released the blockade. Wang Ling took the opportunity and walked over quickly. When he got closer, a group of infantrymen checked repeatedly and confirmed that there was no spiritual connection above Wang Ling's head. They were relieved. After they relaxed their vigilance, a group of people were in an ecstatic mood. The heroes of the coalition forces actually escaped from the control of the Soul Empire and are now standing in front of them. Because of his various glorious achievements and the powerful elite combat arms, Wang Ling's title of hero in the coalition is real, and everyone is convinced. Even many recruits have heard of Wang Ling's name from various aspects after joining the army. Unknowingly, Wang Ling has become the idol and role model for soldiers within the coalition forces. Looking at the innocent smiling faces of these people and listening to their heartfelt laughter, Wang Ling also felt the warmth of understanding, and the coldness he had accumulated in the empire of the soul began to melt. However, before he could respond to the infantry, the captain who had ordered the release slowly walked over and greeted Wang Ling with a smile. "Long time no see, No 101. Wang Ling was stunned when he heard this familiar code name. He turned around and was suddenly surprised. "It turns out to be you, No 099. I thought that voice sounded familiar." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 863. No wonder that voice sounded familiar. It turned out to be an old acquaintance, No 099 of the first company during the barracks. When he was in the recruit training camp, Wang Ling was number 101 of the 5th company of recruits. He was privately known as the worst in the army because of his lack of physical strength when he first arrived. The army is not a simple place, especially in the recruitment stage. It is inevitable that you will encounter some energetic recruits, who are like No 099 of the first company is a typical representative. Back then, relying on Wang Ling's several months of training, he actually brought some new soldiers and bullied Wang Ling. At that time, Wang Ling was far from being as powerful as he is now. Not to mention the basic strengthening, it was difficult to complete even ordinary training. During the conflict, even the people from the 5th company who came to help the boxing ended in a disastrous defeat, which attracted the 5th. The instructor was annoyed and trained all night. However, fortunately, there was an unexpected virus invasion later, which allowed Wang Ling to save enough points to exchange for a primary enhancer. He took this opportunity to defeat No 099 in the battle, and even withstood the entire First Company's will battle, and finally won the Ling dynasty at that time. Captain Fei's appreciation was sent to the battlefield in advance. The night before leaving, Wang Ling had found this No 099 and had a private conversation. Not to mention that all the old grudges have been settled, at least the conflicts between the two parties have almost been put aside. Since Wang Ling joined the battlefield, too many faces have become the past forever. Even though there are still many people who are still alive, they have never met again. I can't remember how long it has been since I saw No 099. Unexpectedly, when Wang Ling was in trouble and was being chased by the Soul Empire to escape, the coalition force he bumped into turned out to be the same team No 099 was in. Ha ha ha, old man, long time no see. His mind instantly recalled all the past events, and when he saw the familiar face in front of him, Wang Ling felt nostalgic from the bottom of his heart. Although they were once at war with each other, with the passage of time and the training of the battlefield, the two of them had long lost their youthful vigor. When they met again, they both laughed heartily and hugged each other after they recognized each other, slapping each other on the back. After letting go for a while, Wang Ling sighed, "This world is really small. I didn't expect to escape from the pursuit of the Soul Empire and bump into you immediately. I haven't seen you for such a long time. I didn't expect you to be a squad leader. TCH, stop teasing me about this. However, No 099 didn't like Wang Ling's words and turned back with disdain. How can a squad leader be looked down upon by you? You pervert are all heroes of the coalition. Now, the leader of the majestic hero group Wolf Group is still a reserve commander. How can I, a little captain, be nothing in your eyes? Yes, it may be extremely difficult for an ordinary red police soldier to successfully be promoted to captain after more than a year of hard work, but Wang Ling directly jumped into the preliminary candidate for general commander and became a hero of the entire army. Comparing the two, No 099 inevitably feels ashamed of himself. However, despite his rapid improvement, Wang Ling's mentality has never changed. He is still the dumb boy. After hearing the sour words of No 099, he directly hugged his neck and mocked, "What, that mentality back then, has the edge of the arrogant scoundrel been smoothed by time now? This is not the No 099 I know. Show off the confidence you had when you beat me up." "Bah, I'm not going to pick up the pot." No 099's face darkened, but Wang Ling burst into laughter. Seeing the two of them talking so familiarly, the other soldiers were quite dumbfounded. One soldier even interrupted and asked, "Captain of the team, have you known each other before?" No 099's expression finally softened, and he replied with a smile, "Yes, we met in the boot camp. I was in the first company at that time, and 101 was in the 5th company." Tisk tisk. You brat, you actually have such a background. I know such a big man, why have I never heard of you talking about it? No 099 had just finished speaking, but another person walked out of the crowd. Looking at the military rank, he had already reached the level of colonel. After arriving, he quickly gave Wang Ling a military salute. Wang Ling immediately returned the salute, and No 099 followed suit. After the customary etiquette of meeting, No 099 explained in shame, "Team leader, our relationship was too awkward at that time. At that time, number 101 was not like it is now. Strong, I even bullied him because of my status as a veteran, and it would be disgraceful to tell him." "Ha ha ha, bullying Chief Wang Ling? It's a good thing you didn't say anything before, otherwise you would have been regarded as a lunatic and talking nonsense." The team leader smiled wildly. No 099 was even more embarrassed. He twitched his facial muscles and barely held it back. Then he turned and introduced to Wang Ling, "He is the leader of our Fox group, Makai. He has told us a lot about you before. Highly recommended." After hearing this, Wang Ling suddenly realized that he was still a hidden fan of his. Makai didn't mind No 099's introduction. When Wang Ling looked over, he showed a rare expression of embarrassment. "Heroes, everyone will aspire to them. It's not just me. There are a few in the whole army who have never heard of you, a famous person." Oh, I can't imagine that this was actually said by the usually arrogant team leader. It seemed that he had found the backstage, and No 099 got bold and started mocking Makai. Makai choked for a moment and immediately stared back. "What a shame. You are so embarrassed to accuse me. You and Chief Wang Ling are in the same military camp. You even joined the army a few months before him, but look at this, what's the gap? I'm already a hero in the army, but you're still in the position of captain. Don't you feel ashamed? Team leader, you have been in the army longer than me, right? I'm crazy. Ha ha ha, it's quite lively. You little guys, a big shot came to the station, why didn't anyone tell me?" Just as the two were bickering and Wang Ling was watching the show, a vigorous and powerful laughter suddenly came from the direction of the base vehicle. He turned around and saw that it was an old general with the rank of lieutenant general, who was obviously the commander of this base. "Official. General." Makai and No 099 saluted quickly, and even Wang Ling did not neglect them. The old general did not maintain his identity and returned the same salute after approaching. After the ceremony, No. 099 introduced, 101, "This is our commander, Lieutenant General Lei Jun." "General, long time no see," Wang Ling nodded and said hello with a smile. He had met this general at two large-scale military meetings between the two armies before, but he didn't know his name. Lieutenant General Lei Jun looked at Wang Ling, nodded with satisfaction, and then sighed, "I thought I would never see you again in this life, but I didn't expect that you, Wang Ling, finally got rid of the control of the Soul Empire and came back. Tell me, how did you come out, and what's going on with this outfit?" Ahem, it's hard to put it into words. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 864. It's hard to describe in one sentence, so let's make it short and summarize it. Lieutenant General Lei Jun was simple enough. Wang Ling nodded slightly and explained, "The Mind Empire wanted to completely control me, erase my personality and consciousness, use me for experiments, and try to transform me into a wild beast king. However, the experiment went wrong, and during the transformation, he broke the mental connection of Yuri's clone, made a big fuss, and escaped." As he spoke, Wang Ling pointed to the tattered clothes surrounding his lower body with a wry smile, and explained, "The injuries on my body are due to them. Every time I was rounded up, I escaped, but again and again he was injured, and even his clothes were torn like this when he transformed into the Wild Beast King." This summary is simple and clear enough. However, looking at Wang Ling's current appearance and injuries, and hearing this simple story, everyone at the scene could imagine how difficult this process was. They are not just new recruits. There are many elite soldiers in the team, as well as many veterans. Many of them are still injured. It is obvious that they migrated after the battle and victory. And since we have fought against the Soul Empire, we naturally know how powerful and terrifying this hostile force is. Because of this, they were even more impressed by Wang Ling. Under such terrifying power, although Wang Ling was embarrassed, he still managed to escape and bump into his own troops. "Thank you for your hard work these days," Lieutenant General Lei Jun couldn't help but sigh. Is it hard? It was indeed hard work, but it was not as difficult as they imagined. After all, Wang Ling was playing rogue. Once he was seriously injured or too tired, he would return to the real world to rest. In fact, the most difficult part of this period was the pursuers of the Soul Empire. For this reason, Wang Ling couldn't help laughing, and responded in a decent manner, "It's all worth it if we can find our own troops and return to the coalition camp." After finishing speaking, Wang Ling looked at his own clothes and said awkwardly, "But, can you give me a military uniform? You can't let me wear this tattered apron when I'm in my own army, right?" "Ha ha ha, of course I can't wrong you. Go and get a brand new military uniform, and don't leave the shoulder straps behind." Lieutenant General Lei Jun was also happy and immediately ordered to go down. Within a moment, a deputy brought a brand new set of military uniforms. Convenient military uniform. In front of a group of big men, Wang Ling didn't show any pretense. He just took off his apron and put on his military uniform. He twisted his neck and said with a smile, "It's still so comfortable to wear. What a group of people, the bastard is really chasing me." Ha ha ha. Everyone burst into laughter again, and Lieutenant General Lei Jun took the senior colonel's rank epaulet and put it on Wang Ling's shoulders very solemnly. After changing into the military uniform and wearing the military rank again, Wang Ling finally officially returned to the coalition camp. For this reason, all the infantrymen in the base respectfully paid military salutes to Wang Ling. Wang Ling also maintained the military salute posture, turned his body, and looked at all the infantry. After the ceremony, Wang Ling changed arms in front of everyone and became an elite combat soldier. A strange thing happened. The clothes that could not be changed no matter how he changed the arms, now returned to normal, and his outfit changed into the uniform of an elite combat soldier. Later, Wang Ling continued to transform into magnetic blast infantry, anti-aircraft infantry, and SEALs, and his weapons and uniforms also changed accordingly. Haha, that's cool, Wang Ling smiled with satisfaction. Just at this time. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. This time it's real, laser UFO. Quick, prepare to fight. Dot. The patrolling infantryman sent out an alarm signal again, frightening everyone present. Wang Ling gritted his teeth, looked at the direction where the laser UFO was chasing, and said angrily, "Mard, you got carried away and forgot about them. I ran here because they were chasing me, but I didn't expect that I couldn't. I threw him away completely, but they bit me instead." However, regarding this enemy attack, Lieutenant General Lei Jun was not worried at all. He even said boldly, "When a hero returns, there must be some luck, right? Let's use them to cleanse our heroes. Wang Ling, my troops, I will temporarily leave everything under your command, and we must annihilate all enemy forces." "Yes, I promise to complete the mission," Wang Ling quickly responded with a military salute. Previously, those laser UFOs chased Wang Ling like Sun Tzu, but Wang Ling fought alone and had to run away. "But now that I have found an organization with a group of elite soldiers and generals, what else do I have to fear? All apocalypse tanks, line up at the front. Armed helicopters." Finally regaining that familiar feeling, Wang Ling seemed to have returned to his previous role as leader of the Wolf Group in an instant. He skillfully commanded the troops at General Lei Jun's base and arranged them in a formation he was familiar with. Although they are not their own wolf troops, they belong to the coalition, and the capabilities of all arms remain the same. At best, they have different firepower. Wang Ling, on the other hand, has extremely rich experience in fighting against the Seoul Empire, and is very familiar with the capabilities of the various arms of the coalition. He can deal with more than 10 laser UFOs with ease. However, after all, as this was the first battle after his return, Wang Ling did not rely too heavily on it and went all out, directly mobilizing all the air defense forces in the base. Under his command, more than 20 apocalypse tanks were at the forefront, followed by more than 50 anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, followed by more than 20 anti-aircraft infantry, more than 30 armed helicopters hovering in the air, and finally coupled with the pervert Wang Ling, the entire air defense lineup was extremely luxurious, and all the air defense forces were screwed together. Buzz buzz. After he finished making arrangements, the dozen or so laser UFOs finally rushed over in a hurry. This area obviously failed to cover the electronic video signal of the Seoul Empire. Those laser UFOs failed to observe the existence of the coalition forces. It was not until they broke into this area that they suddenly discovered that the muzzles of their guns were polished and waiting for them. The coalition air defense force and the entire laser UFO force were obviously stunned, and the entire team stagnated in the air for a moment. Swish swish swish. Swish swish swish. But without giving them much time to react, the apocalypse tank at the front had already fired missiles, bombarding the laser UFOs on the edge. There was no other way, they were already engaged, and there was no way to avoid this battle. A group of laser UFOs quickly sent a signal to the nearby commanders, and then they all rushed in, charging and bombarding the apocalypse tanks in front. Ta-da da ta-da-da. Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. Dong 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 dong. But this charge was like poking a hornet's nest. Armed helicopters swarmed in the sky to attack, densely packed like locusts, almost blocking the laser UFO's route. On the ground, the anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, anti-aircraft infantry, and Wang Ling all opened fire. The intense firepower was so intense that it was so mind-numbing to watch.